Beneath the thin veil of our reality lies a world teeming with secrets dark and deep. Peel back the curtain with us as we venture into the unknown in Chilling Tales by Thangs. Echoes of the Forgotten. As the urban explorers penetrated further into the heart of Ashcliff Psychiatric Hospital, the air thickened, charged with the residue of 1,000 untold stories. The very fabric of the place seemed woven from threads of despair, each corridor and room a testament to the anguish that had once suffused its confines. The walls, peeling and stained, whispered of the dread and loneliness that clung to them like a second skin. The explorers, armed with nothing but their flashlights and a naive bravado, began to sense the depth of their intrusion. The hospital, a labyrinth of shadows, seemed to breathe around them, its sighs heavy with sorrow. The further they ventured, the more the boundary between the past and the present eroded, until the air itself seemed to pulsate with the raw emotions of those who had suffered there. Visions assailed them, not as fleeting specters, but as visceral experiences. They felt the jolt of electric shocks that had been administered in the name of treatment, the despair of isolation in padded cells, and the relentless grip of restraints that had chafed at both flesh and spirit. These were not mere hauntings, but echoes of real, human suffering, imprinted on the very essence of Ashcliff. The entity they encountered was an amalgamation of pain, a tempest of lost souls crying out for recognition, for the acknowledgement of their torment. It enveloped the explorers, forcing them to live through the anguish and despair that had been the daily fare of Ashcliff's inhabitants. Each step forward was a journey deeper into the psyche of the hospital, where the line between sanity and madness blurred beyond recognition. To escape, the explorers realized they had to confront more than the oppressive atmosphere or the anguished wails that echoed through the halls. They faced the very essence of human cruelty and indifference, the darkness that had not only dwelled in Ashcliff, but that lurks in the heart of humanity. It was a trial by fire, a passage through the night of the soul that demanded they recognize the suffering of others as their own. In the end, the escape from Ashcliff was not a physical journey, but a spiritual exodus. The explorers emerged into the light, forever changed. The hospital remained, a silent guardian of its own grim legacy, but the echoes of the forgotten had found a voice in those who had dared to listen. The explorers left Ashcliff behind, but the echoes followed them, a haunting reminder that some horrors are not confined to the shadows of abandoned places, but reside in the memories of the pain inflicted upon the vulnerable. Ashcliff stood, a monument not to ghostly apparitions, but to the real horrors of neglect and the unyielding despair of the human condition. The hungering cold. In the heart of Whitewood, the blizzard transformed the town into a realm of spectral beauty and peril, where every snowflake carried the weight of a forgotten past. The celebration of the first snowfall gave way to an ominous silence, broken only by the howling winds that whispered of ancient hungers. The residents, once welcoming of winter's embrace, now peered into the storm with apprehension, sensing that the snow veiled more than just the landscape. The hungry ones, as the figures came to be known, roamed the edges of perception, their presence an icy caress on the back of the neck, a glimpse of movement in the corner of the eye. Their forms were ethereal, sculpted from the blizzard itself, with eyes that bore the cold luster of hunger unfulfilled. These specters were not hunters in the traditional sense. They were harbingers of a hunger that gnawed at the soul, a reminder of a time when Whitewood's ancestors were driven to the brink of their humanity. As the blizzard tightened its grip, the town's isolation became more than just physical. The residents felt an emotional and spiritual seclusion, as if the snow sought to separate them from the warmth of their connections, to reduce them to the primal state of their forebears. The cold was not just a physical sensation, but a deep, penetrating chill that reached into their very beings, awakening a primordial fear of the dark and the unknown. To confront the hungry ones was to confront the darkest chapters of Whitewood's history. Legend spoke of a time of great famine, when the land yielded no sustenance and the people were consumed by a hunger so profound that it led to unspeakable acts. These acts, buried by time and snow, lived on through the hungry ones, a manifestation of the town's collective guilt and unacknowledged past. Survival demanded more than firewood and food. It required the townsfolk to face the truths they had long buried under layers of snow and silence. The key to quelling the hungry ones lay in acknowledging and confronting the past, in understanding that the hunger was not for flesh, but for recognition, for the stories of those lost to desperation to be told and remembered. A small group of residents, led by an historian who had delved into the town's archives, began the process of confronting their ancestors' deeds. They gathered, despite the cold's biting embrace, to recount the tales of those dark times, to give voice to the suffering and the choices made in the face of oblivion. As they shared these stories, the temperature seemed to rise, the wind's howl softened, and the figures in the blizzard began to fade, their forms dissolving into the snow as if sated by the act of remembrance. The blizzard eventually abated, leaving Whitewood blanketed in a peace that was both solemn and cleansing. The snow, once a prison, now served as a canvas upon which the town could rewrite its identity, acknowledging its past while forging a path toward a future where the hungry ones need not return. Whitewood emerged from the storm, transformed, its residents bound by a shared experience of facing the hunger within and without. The first snowfall would never again be met with unbridled joy, but with a reflective reverence for the lessons it brought. The town had learned that some hungers cannot be silenced by turning away, but only by facing them with open hearts and a willingness to remember. The Puppeteer's Curse. In the dimly lit corners of the antique shop, where dust danced in the slivers of light and time seemed to stand still, Julian's discovery of the marionette marked the beginning of his descent into a world veiled in secrecy and darkness. The marionette, with its eerily lifelike eyes, was not merely an artifact, but a relic of a bygone era when artistry flirted with the arcane and puppeteers were the unseen architects of fate. As Julian's fingers first caressed the marionette's strings, a chill wind whispered through the shop, as if the very act of touching the puppet had disturbed an ancient equilibrium. The marionette's eyes, glassy and deep, seemed to flicker with a malevolent intelligence, a silent acknowledgement of the pact that Julian had unwittingly sealed. The Puppeteers' Guild, a cabal as old as the craft itself, emerged from the shadows, drawn to the resurgence of the marionette's power. They were the custodians of secrets that had shaped the course of empires, puppet masters who pulled the strings of kings and queens, weaving the tapestry of history with the skill of sorcerers. To them, Julian was a mere novice, a vessel through which the marionette's true potential could be unleashed. But as Julian delved deeper into the guild's machinations, he began to sense the true nature of the curse that the marionette bore. With each thread of fate he twisted to his will, a piece of his own humanity frayed and unraveled. The eyes of the marionette became mirrors, reflecting not the world around them, but the void within Julian, a void that grew with every soul he ensnared. The guild's vision of control was an illusion, a labyrinth of strings that ensnared puppet and puppeteer alike. Julian's ascent was marked by a trail of lives manipulated and broken, including those he had once held dear. The realization dawned upon him that the marionette's curse was not in its power to control, but in the insatiable hunger for domination it instilled in its master. The battle for Julian's soul culminated in a confrontation with the guild, not in a physical arena, but on the metaphysical battlefield of wills. Julian, armed with the knowledge of his own enslavement to the marionette's curse, sought to sever the strings that bound him, to dismantle the guild's network of control and free himself from the puppet's gaze. In the climax of his struggle, Julian understood that the key to breaking the curse lay not in destruction, but in acceptance. He acknowledged the marionette not as a tool of power, but as a symbol of the intrinsic human yearning for connection and influence. By accepting his own vulnerabilities, fear, love, and the desire for freedom, Julian was able to reforge the curse into a blessing, a reminder of the strength found in recognizing one's own limitations and the power of genuine human interaction. The antique shop, once a gateway to darkness, became a beacon of light, a place where the strings of fate were untangled and rewoven into a tapestry of new beginnings. Julian, no longer a puppeteer but a guardian of the marionette's legacy, dedicated himself to teaching others the true essence of control. the courage to let go of the strings and embrace the unpredictable dance of free will. The puppeteer's curse, thus, became a legend, a parable for the ages about the eternal struggle between manipulation and autonomy, and the ultimate liberation that comes from understanding the true nature of power.